And if it wasn't for him and the proposition of me going to support him with my best friend with cancer, there's no way with my belief systems that I would have ever went to that place. I mean, I had a branding iron. If you came over to my house, I would brand my initials in it. It was a birthday gift, and then I'd serve the steak to you. Okay. I hunted and fished. We had our own meat saw, meat grinders. We made our own pepperoni, sausage, jerky. I was hunting and fishing my whole life. It's all my whole life revolved around.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Get ready to hear from doctors, nutritionists, experts, and everyday men and women committed to creating a powerful life in mind, body, and soul through ethical food choices. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
Hey everyone, this is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health, and I'm really excited about today's guest. Actually, this guy is a little off the wall and off the beam and a little to the left, little to the right. I haven't figured it out. Tim James is actually my featured expert today. And we connected recently, hit it off right away. He's one of those guys that when you have a conversation with this guy, you walk away feeling energized. And that's what today's conversation is going to be about. Tim actually has done some pretty amazing things in the plant-based world. And with that, I just want to say, hey, Tim, great to have you here.
Kathleen, thank you so much for having me on and giving me a chance to share. That's cool.
Absolutely. Now, I know that we're practically neighbors. You're in Portland and I'm outside of Eugene. Have you always lived in the Portland area?
No, I grew up over in Eastern Oregon in La Grande, which is like a small community up in the mountains. La Grande's got like 11,000 people, a little bit more than that. And then I lived out in the valley. I didn't even live in town. I lived on a farm, cattle and hay farm. Mm-hmm.
Now, where in the valley?
Do you know where Mount Emily is? It's the west. It's kind of the west side of the valley. It's the biggest mountain. We lived at the base of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. What took you to Portland?
Baseball.
Okay.
Yeah. Baseball. After I got out of, summer ball, we did, Babe Ruth and we did Legion for 3 years. And then after that, I still played college baseball. And then there was some semi-pro teams down here in Portland. So I came down here and got a construction job and then played baseball 4 or 5 days a week. It was all through the summer. It was great and got to play at higher levels. And we got to use wood bats, which was really fun. And did that for...
One of the things that I noticed when we had our first conversation, one of the first things I said to you is you look so healthy and you're plant-based, but you also have gone beyond just being plant-based. You've actually created something that you first created it for yourself and you've actually turned it into a business. So share with us how you got involved in plant-based eating and what that really means to you, and then what the evolution of your life and your business has been.
Okay. So, I grew up on the standard American diet. I was hunting and fishing, which is probably not totally standard American for the people living in the city, but out where I lived, hunting and fishing was just a way of life, deer and elk and chuckers and pheasants and quail and Hungarian partridge, whatever. I mean, our motto was literally, if it flies, it dies. If it's brown, it's down. Just to give you an idea. Okay. So total redneck.
Tears coming to my eyes.
Pyramid of cans in the pale moonlight, all that kind of stuff. And fast forward at age 37, I found myself, wife, kids, house, paying mortgage, working as a financial advisor. And I was 38 pounds overweight and I had a huge gut and I was bloated all the time. I had acid indigestion really bad. I was eating Tums and Rolaids like they were going out of style. I literally had some in my truck, at my office, in my car, next to my couch sofa thing where I was watching eating TV. I mean, I was eating them all the time. I had really bad acid reflux, indigestion. Doctor wanted me to go on Prilosec, but it just sounded weird. Just Prilosec. It just sounded weird. And I thought I was probably going to have to go on to it, but I just didn't want to do it. And then it got really bad. I started getting eczema on both of my elbows and they started cracking and bleeding, which would like screw up your shirts. I had a lot of long sleeve shirts, especially white ones when you're a financial advisor and you're doing a presentation and your freaking arm's bleeding, so I had to start wearing darker shirts and then I'd bleed on people's couches. It was terrible. Then my knee got it really bad and that was the worst. Then I had another skin issue starting on my right shoulder. I was literally rotting and molding from the inside out from the standard American diet. I didn't know it. The doctor was just wanting to give me a pill. Then finally I was on a vacation down just in northern Peru below Ecuador. Awesome vacation on the beach. It was, I mean, the seashells on the beach looked like they should have been in a museum. They were freaking cool. And just total nature. Nobody's messing with things. It was beautiful. And then I had to be basically life flighted to a hospital in Lima, Peru, and had an emergency surgery to get an organ removed. And I remember that mask going over my face. I'm like, man, this is scary. And then I woke up. The whole trip got ruined for me, my wife, her dad. I mean, just ruined the trip for everybody. So that's when I realized that my poor health didn't affect just me. It affects everybody else around me. Mm-hmm. And but I just kept going about my life. And then finally, one of my good friends on my baseball team, Clay Mahoy, got stomach cancer, went through chemo, radiation, all that stuff. And he died. He didn't have any insurance, and he died 80 pounds under his weight. Now, this was the first time, Kathleen, that somebody – my age had died of cancer. I lost my grandma to brain cancer, my aunt to skin cancer, and other people I know have died of cancer in my family. But this was like somebody my age, so I was a little freaked out. But maybe it was just an anomaly. We thought maybe because he chewed tobacco, maybe that caused the stomach. That kind of makes sense, the connection there. But he was a strong dude. He was in really good shape. I mean, he had like a six-pack abs. He could have been an underwear model, and he ends up dying. So that was terrible. And then right after that, and he left 3 little boys behind too. So again, your health, poor health doesn't affect just you, it affects other people. So then my buddy Charles, he calls me up one day and says, hey, stop on by. I want to talk to you. And then he lays it out to me and he's like, I got cancer. He's 43. And I'm just like, Jesus, dude. I'm like, then I'm thinking, I'm looking at the picture of him and his wife and his son on his desk. Cause every year they go on a vacation. He'd put the new vacation picture there for the year. And then every year it'd be a new picture. Right. And I looked at that picture and I thought, wow, next year Charles isn't going to be there. Because that's my experience. You get cancer and you're toast. You die. And he said, hey, I'm going to they don't really have a lot for me here at Western Medicine. So we have OHSU up here, Oregon Health Sciences University and everything. And we actually had the top specialist on that specific cancer, that CLL or chronic lymphocytic leukemia in the world, supposedly right here. And I knew something was off when he was giving a lecture to 74 people that had CLL, and he was drinking a Diet Pepsi while he was giving the lecture. So this is before I had even knew anything about health, okay? I knew a Diet Pepsi wasn't good for you. I had already gotten off of McDonald's because I watched that movie Super Size Me, where that guy was eating the McDonald's, and he got tested, and then the doctor, like halfway through, it's like, whatever you're doing, stop. You're going to kill yourself. And I'm like, whoa. So if I'm eating McDonald's, I'm killing myself a little bit. So I'm done doing that. So I kind of gave up most fast foods, but that was about the extent of my health knowledge. So anyway, he's like, we're going to go to this place called the Hippocrates Health Institute. They're a detox and nutrition clinic in Florida. They've been around 61 years at the time. It was started by a gal named Ann Wigmore that healed herself of stage 4 colon cancer using grasses and herbs and juices and these kinds of things. So I'm like, dude, whatever you need, I'm in. I'll do it. I support you. I got your back. And I had no idea what I was getting into. So this is beyond plant-based. This place is all living foods. I mean, they have a 3-acre vegetable garden where they grow most of their veggies. They have this huge warehouse or greenhouse growing sunflower sprouts and pea sprouts and buckwheat lettuce and wheatgrass and mung bean sprouts and aduki beans and fenugreek and lentils. And I mean, you name it, everything there, every nut, grain, bean, and seed is soaked in water first and technically sprouted. So they're preaching a living food diet, not just a vegan diet, but a living food diet. So as you're consuming it, it's alive. I never even heard of that. I mean, I had sprouts on my hoagies back in the day before they banned it because of E. coli fears. But I used to like those little ones, on the thing. But anyway, so we go there, and then on the plane flight there, Charles is like, oh, Tim, by the way, when we get there, there's no meat, no dairy, no salt, no sugar, nothing's cooked over 115 degrees, no vinegar. And I'm thinking, what in the hell am I going to eat? And if it wasn't for him and the proposition of me going to support him with my best friend with cancer, there's no way with my belief systems that I would have ever went to that place. I mean, I had a branding iron. If you came over to my house, I would brand my initials in. It was a birthday gift, and then I'd serve the steak to you. Okay. I hunted and fished. We had our own meat saw, meat grinders. We made our own pepperoni, sausage, jerky. I was hunting and fishing my whole life. It's all my whole life revolved around. So it was the funnest thing. But it was more about the camaraderie with the friends I found out later. So anyway, we show up at this place, And I can't believe it's true. So I got my notebook and I'm running around interviewing everybody, trying to find the holes in this thing, because I can't believe this little podunk place is helping people to heal a cancer. I mean, come on, they're spending billions on research and race for the cure and ribbons everywhere. Come on. Well, guess what? A lot of people that I interviewed had already healed and they were coming back and revisiting, or they were bringing a friend. And the first lecture really got me. It was called Internal Awareness by this guy named Dr. Scott. And he had just muscles like crazy. He was 50. And I asked him how old he was, and he told me, and I thought he was maybe 40. So everybody that worked at that place that had been there for 10 or 15 years, they looked 10, 15, 20 years younger than people their age. This guy was full of muscles, and he said he hadn't had meat in 10 years. And I blew my mind, because there he was, stacked with muscle. So was his wife, and he hadn't had meat in 10 years. So it wasn't a facade. It was right in front of my face. I had first-person experience. And then I started consuming these foods. I went through what's called the healing crisis for the first few days. I was detoxing, night sweats, irritability, foul smells coming out of you, you know, these types of things. And the first few days sucked. I had night sweats, irritable, but it wasn't bad. Some people had it worse. I saw people with rashes breaking out and spots, sometimes all over their body, as their body's pushing out all this garbage and toxins. Because basically what they do, what they taught us, was we live an acidic lifestyle. And we eat a lot of acid-based foods. So when you eat all these cooked, processed, acid-based foods, meats and dairies and cookies and candies and pastas and pastries and bread, these are all acid. Well, you create this acidosis in your body, and that's a perfect environment for harmful organisms, viruses, bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold, and parasites. And cancer loves it. Cancer loves a low-oxygen, highly acidic environment. So what they do there is they change your environment. And you start drinking purified water and these alkalizing green juices and these alkalizing living and raw fresh foods. And you change the internal chemistry, and then the harmful organisms pack their bags and they're leaving. And that's why you'd see parasites crawling out of people's arms, their pores. One lady had a parasite crawling out of her eye as these things are exiting. And, you know, when you see that, you're just like, holy crap.
I just got chills all over on that one. That's like as gross as it gets. And yet that's what's going on in our bodies. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We're all freaking out seeing this stuff, and some of us experiencing it. And then when you're, you know, going to the bathroom, you know, half the people, not just the long, big parasites that you normally think to see out, but your stools can become white. They kind of look like they have little white fluffy stuff on it, because there's little different types. There's smaller parasites that you can't see, and then you can see when they're like that, but then there's other tiny ones that you can't see. And all these parasites are consuming your food and drinking your liquids, and they're urinating and defecating you. All these harmful organisms are doing this, and they create more acid at top, more acid. And before too long, the immune system just can't take it anymore. So we switched the lifestyle, and on day 5, I'm just like, I got more energy than I looked at Charles. I'm like, dude, you're going to live. This is going to work. We're going to do this. I'm going to go all plant-based except for bacon. I'm going to keep that. And because I figured I could mix it in with everything else. Because I felt so good. I mean, nobody could take that experience away from me, man. I felt like I was 19 again. I felt invincible. And that was when I was 37. And it's been 10 years I've been able to maintain that lifestyle. I took what they taught me there. I went back to that place 5 times, re-educated more, learned on my own, been navigating and studying all these plant-based things, and anything to heal, anything I can do to improve my energy, improve my gut health, improve my bacteria in my body, lower my stress levels. I've been geeking out on this for 10 years. I'm 47, and I literally I think better today than I did when I first started this journey. So that's what we teach people to do in our coaching program, where we do it one-on-one or in our private group coaching. And then we develop these, you know, products to speed up the process for people, so that a lot of people can't go to a clinic and break away from work and that kind of stuff, nor maybe they can now with what's going on. But so we just deliver the clinic in a box to you, and it's completely naturally occurring in nature, foods and herbs, and we just make it easy for people.
So now I know that you work with a lot of companies, and you shared a story with me about a company that you worked with where you went in the morning and you did yoga and you did energy work. And, you know, talk to us about that, because a lot of people, they hear the word vegan, and one, it sounds like such a radical term, and yet there's a difference between vegan and plant-based. Many people think they're both one and the same, and they can be night and day. So talk about, you know, the whole holistic approach that you take with not just plant-based eating, but the live foods, the the product that you've created, but then the spiritual side of it, which would be the meditation, the yoga, all of that.
Yeah, all this stuff will start snowballing for people. So, like, being spiritual, I didn't know how the hell to do that at all. I had no clue. I mean, when I was in high school, in my senior year, I went to a whole bunch of different churches on my own trying to figure this stuff out. Because I asked my mom, I'm like, what are we? Or what are we? She's like, well, we're Christian. I'm like, but we don't go to church. She's like, well, just do good to other people. Just don't hurt anybody. Just be kind to people. And, it's just common sense type stuff. And I'm like, okay. So, but we never brought it up. I never had a Bible or any of that stuff. So I went to all these different religions. I went to the Catholics. I went to the Mormons. I went to the Foursquare Christian churches, all of them. I was open-minded. I would try them all out. And it felt like everybody was like cults and they were trying to get me in So I just that left a bad taste in my mouth. I walked away from that. And it wasn't until when I went through this detox and I came out of this situation, I felt so good. I knew there was something though. There was something more. I couldn't tell what it was. And so I was able to, when you eat cleaner and you clean out the body and you clean out the gut and you clean out the blood from all this toxins and pollution we're absorbing today on a micro level, you open up that spiritual connection. I didn't know what it was. I just had some kind of an idea and a feeling. And it wasn't until about 3-4 years ago, somebody turned me on to some talks and I started listening to it and it just finally clicked. It didn't click for me right out of the gate. I mean, this was like 3 years ago. So I was already into this lifestyle 7 years before the spiritual stuff really, and I'm doing yoga too. I became a yoga instructor, but the spiritual thing, I was so deeply rooted in that old school mentality. Men, you see, I watch these movies on TV and the guy had a rough day, 007. And what does he do? He drinks some whiskey. And that's the worst thing you should do if you just got the crap beat out. You need a green juice. And some purified water. You don't drink whiskey.
Real men drink green juice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid. Actually, I haven't put the site up yet, but because everything is sprouted, right? I have the URL. It's going to be realmensoaktheirnuts.com.
Oh, I love that. I love your shirt.
That's going to be one of our this t-shirt says
love when you poop. I love it.
Love when you poop.
Yeah.
Because it's important. And that's one of the key factors we look at to tell people in our coaching program if they're healthy or not. We look at bowel movements and we look at sleep patterns. Those are two critical components. So, but anyway.
There's something I want to ask you to do with the acidity in our body, with the garbage that's in our body, the really all the death and dying inside of our body, and what's inside is reflected outwardly. And with all that's going on in the world today, with so much violence and so much anger and so much fear, how much of that do you think is directly related to what we're consuming and the fact that we're putting dead crap in our body and then we expect to live vibrant lives? So let's look at that a little bit.
Well, there's actually some work people can look at. They can look up Dr. Paul Kuchkoff, and back in the 20s, he was studying digestion, and he looked at it, and every time people consumed a meal, the white blood cells or leukocytes would spike about 200 to 500%. So, and they thought this was a normal part of digestion. They called it digestive leukocytosis. Those leukocytes or white blood cells went way up. Well, when you look at the immune system, what they taught us at the Hippocrates Health Institute is that the immune system is like a business, okay? And you've got, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the different divisions of the Army. These are the eosinophils, basophils, granulocytes, and leukocytes, these different parts of the immune system. Well, if the white blood cells, the Marines, are being called up to go deal with cooked food all the time, then what are they not dealing with? So, because what happened was he took that test and then they started giving people raw food that was uncooked, and there was virtually zero digestive leukocytosis. So the whole idea here then is it just kind of makes sense. When you, like me, I grew up on an all-cooked diet. Everything was cooked. Everything was cooked. And it's just like, you grow up that way, that's normal. Okay, that's the way things are supposed to be. And then you go to a place like that and they flip your world upside down. And then when you get on their foods and you feel like 20 years younger, you can't argue with it anymore. You're like, this shit works. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how many MDs or alphabet soup you have behind your name or how fancy your studies are. I'm telling you, I ate that stuff. I felt like crap. I was bleeding. I had to have surgery. I was bleeding rectally for 2 years when I'd go poop. 2 years. I didn't tell anybody. Because why? Because I'm a guy and I was stubborn and I was embarrassed. And it's like, hey, I'm bleeding out my butt. It's like, who goes around saying, it's like how many people go around saying, hey, I take depression medication.
Right. Right.
but it's the most well-prescribed drug in the world, is that depression medication. People go, hey, I'm really depressed, I take depression medication. People aren't sharing that stuff. And that's part of our problem, is we're not open, we're closed off, we're not sharing with what's really going on and getting love and support. And then you go into the medical community, it's broken. So anyway, so I'm getting off tangent here, but
well, I think it's important for us to have this dialogue because, so many people keep things to themselves. And right now, with all that's going on with COVID and the financial pressures a lot of people are dealing with, the suicide rate is going up because they don't know where to turn. They think that there's no tomorrow. They think it's going to stay this way forever. And one of the things that I know since going plant-based, and I just love your whole philosophy around the live foods, but I know for me, I've gained much more clarity. I've dropped 35 pounds, and I just, it melted off. It was like I was putting so much crap in my system. My moods are really consistent. It's just amazing what's happened. And like you said, it doesn't matter what studies we read. It's the proof is in how we feel. The proof is in how we're living. The proof is in how we respond to things. So, I think it is important for people to know that depression can be minimized through a plant-based lifestyle. So, going back to you've gone through a bunch of training. You've been certified. How did you come up with the company that you now have and the products that you have?
Yeah, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was see what happened was I had a lot of time and money and invested in financial advising, and I was the guy that was poised to take over my partner's business because he was getting ready to retire. And it was a big business. I mean, we were doing 6 seminars a month, driving and radio shows and driving. It was a multi-million-dollar financial firm that I would have taken over last year. And so I was still doing that while I was teaching classes twice a week, raw food classes, and I was teaching juicing classes and speaking on the weekends at hospitals and churches and wherever, just trying to tell people about, healthy living and detoxing and nutrition and how things really work and the power of living foods and juicing and how it transformed my life. And by the way, my friend Charles, he healed himself of cancer. Okay. He did it in a little over 2 years, just like the doctors there said, if he followed the protocol, which he did, and he's fine. He plays guitar now, and he got to see his son graduate high school, his son graduate college, and we're friends. And I picked up the guitar and I said, I'm going to be the lead singer in your band. So I'm practicing now, trying to catch up with him. But so how it all got started was actually another tragedy. Actually, my little brother got killed in a mountain biking accident. And that sent our family, and my mom especially, reeling for me 6 months. And finally, we talked about this, I think yesterday. Go by my bed and I would just slam my bed with my fist. I just get so frustrated because him and I had big plans to have a farm in Hawaii and do all these cool things. And he was a farmer too. And it just didn't happen. And then finally I was like, one day I was upstairs and I was like, Troy, what do you want me to do? And I heard him say very clearly, do what you love and do it now. And I picked up the phone and I called Jeff and I said, dude, I'm out. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm out. I'm getting out of the financial services industry. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm going to go help people get healthy. That's what I'm going to go do. That's what I'm passionate. I said, I get more joy explaining to people how to grow a sprout or drink a green juice because I know that shit's medicine. I know it will transform their lives if they understand the power that plants heal and that water is sacred. But people have lost this. So, and he's like, well, how are you going to make a living? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. So I bought a big dry erase board, put it up on the wall, started figuring out, and then I just started coaching people for free. And then 2.5 years later, I ran out of money, and I finally decided to start charging. And through that process, I would, as a coach, a lot of people just aren't going to juice. Okay. Right. I coached thousands of people in lives, and they would buy the juicers and they juice for 30 days. And after that, the juicer would be under the counter and they weren't using it. So I went back to these people and I was like, why aren't you doing this? You saw I transformed myself. I looked 10 years younger. Charles healed himself of cancer. You know him. You know this works. I know, Tim, but it's too difficult. And I got to clean that damn juicer, and the stuff's expensive, and my husband won't help me or my wife won't help me. They think I'm crazy. So I'm like, okay, well, what do you need? I need something simple. I need a plan, and it's just basically got to be easy. That's what it boiled down to. So I worked with one of the top formulators in the world, Dr. Scott Treadway, and we made a super concentrated green juice extract. So we call it green 85 because it replaces the 85% of nutrients missing in the soil. And all you got to do is put water in it, shake it up, and drink it. You can drink it with, sprouted nut milks or whatever. So this was our first product, and it was just to solve a need, actually, for me, because I needed something for travel. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a selfish thing, but then it also worked out for my clients too after I did that interview series with 100 people. And then it just started working and people started loving it and getting results. And they were doing it every day, Kathleen. And then it started compounding. Their energy got up, their mental clarity got up, the gas and bloating started going away. But then I noticed 15% of those people, they would get plugged up really bad. Because this detoxes from the top down, because they were so polluted and plugged up in the first place. The average person, by the way, is carrying around about 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material and mucoid plaque lining the small and large intestine. And you can eat lots of healthy stuff like the Green 85 formula, but you got to get the gut cleaned out and the colon cleaned out first. It's got to be cleaned out first. That's sub-basement. Just kind of makes sense. If the car's not running right, you don't just put great fuel in it. You take it into the shop and you flush the engine, you flush the transmission fluid, new spark plug, new fuel filter. Then you take really good care of it, put good fuel in it, and maintenance that sucker. And that's what we're teaching people to do. So I went through a bunch of different products, and then I finally landed on this one. It was working really good, but it was like lots of diarrhea. For 5 days, people are literally, it just coming out, but it worked. So Dr. Treadway turned me on to our now called Gut Detox. It's a gentle formula from India, and there's virtually no diarrhea. And you can detox while you're working, while you're traveling. You don't have to run to the bathroom. It's really awesome. Nice. So through this process of going through and developing these products, I also, and the backstory of that was because I got tired of looking at these companies, picking them all out. Okay, I got my gut detox here. Go here and get that one. And then go here and get your green juice. Go here and get your probiotics. Go here and get your digestive enzymes. And then guess what? They would change the ingredients, or they'd get bought out by a big company like Nestle, and then they would put synthetics in there, or they'd start putting in. I mean, check your labels. For those of you listening, if you see I don't know if you can see on mine, but you see the red stuff there?
Yeah.
It says no magnesium stearate, no
there
silicon.
It is. Okay, it's coming in clear.
Yeah, no silicon dioxide and no dicalcium phosphate.
Nice.
Those are three of the most common binders, fillers, or flow agents that you're going to find in your supplements. And magnesium stearate is a toxin. And so silicon dioxide is a level 3 toxin on the EPA's toxin list. Yet it's okay to put in supplements. This is the same thing that I tell people and my clients, like, if your toothpaste says harmful if swallowed, contact the Poison Control Center. You might want to question that, because aren't you swallowing just a little bit every day?
That's incredible.
And that's the problem today, is like people have no idea that the laws are not protecting you. And the only way you can guarantee that you're getting a good product is you have to know the owners of the company. You have to know what their missions are. Otherwise, I've watched a lot of good companies where there's actually been doctors, naturalistic, holistic type people. They're dead. The corporation takes over. And I'm not going to mention names, but there's some of them that are supposed to be completely organic, and there's a lot of the stuff is synthetic, and they don't even tell you on the labels anymore because of the way the processing. They force feed a yeast, which is a naturally occurring thing, with a synthetic, and somehow magically that synthetic is not a synthetic anymore because they forced a yeast to eat it, and then it goes into supplements because it's cheaper. So anyway, that's why I started the line, because out of frustration, and it was just originally for me and my small group of coaching clients, and we just did little batches, and I did that for basically 5 years until just a few months ago. More and more people have heard about it. So we've been doing larger orders just from word of mouth for my coaching clients. But I started getting on some podcasts, and then poof, it took off. So now this is like, I had to hire a bunch of people, and we're helping people all over the world. And now we're shipping worldwide, which is cool. And then I opened up a private group coaching, because there's no way I could one-on-one all these people. So
right. Yeah, it's kind of like, you have to scale your business. But I'm talking with Tim James. This is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health. We're talking about plant-based eating, live foods, supplements, and very natural products. And it's Tim James, and his company is Chemical Free. And so, Tim, how do people reach you, and how would they get hold of this product?
Well, they can just go to the website at chemicalfreebody.com. That's it, chemicalfreebody.com. They can find everything there. My podcast is there. It's called The Health Hero Show. I go into depth on some of these things, like proper food combining. Just because you eat healthy foods doesn't necessarily make sure that you're going to get good digestion and assimilation. If you're mixing the good, healthy foods together in the wrong combination, you could end up with fermentation and gut rot and destroy those little intestinal villi. So I went deep on that. And I interview cool people like you. So hopefully you'll come on the show.
Oh, I'd love to.
Our coaching stuff's there and the products are there. It's all there.
Well, it's so interesting because what I see is that you actually walk the talk. You look like somebody who's in really good shape. You're healthy. You've got high energy, and it always amazes me when people are peddling whatever they're peddling, whatever philosophy it is, and it's all about living a great life, and they can't even get out of bed in the morning, or they're 100 pounds overweight, and it's like no, that doesn't fit. And so it really is about being aligned with what you're saying is true and what you're actually living. There's a couple of notes that I took on just some of the things that you talked about. And really, the whole issue with people not supporting a loved one that's trying to change their eating. How do you work with your clients to teach them that this is about them? It's like being in recovery. I'm 36 years clean and sober. And when I got clean and sober, it had nothing to do with anybody but me. It was a lifesaver for me. So with a lot of people that come to the plant-based lifestyle, it really is about saving their life. Maybe they've got diabetes, they might be obese, they might have high blood pressure, they're a walking stroke ready to happen. So how do you work with people who really need to make this change, but they're not getting support at home? How would you address that?
Well, the first thing is, we sit down with the clients and we really get them to focus on loving self and putting self first, no matter what. And I see this all the time with women and men. They put themselves last. They take care of the kids. They take care of the family. They let themselves go. They come up with all these excuses. Well, I was pregnant and this blah, 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 blah. And then what ends up happening is they run themselves into the ground emotionally, spiritually, and physically until a wheel falls off and they have a mental breakdown, a physical breakdown. Then they can't help anybody. So what I've learned is I tell my clients this. Look, I'm the most important person in my life. I put myself first. And why do I do that? Because I love my kids. Like, yeah, I'll jump in front of a bullet and take a bullet for my kids. But for me to set the example for them to follow, I have to lead by example. Like if I'm putting my health off to the side and doing all that, I'm giving them permission to do the same thing. Now I'm giving my boys, because I have 2 boys, permission to be super fit and super healthy and follow their passion no matter what. And don't worry about the money. If you do what you love, it will follow and you don't have to worry about it. And now I'm actually thinking, well, anyway, I'm really excited about the business end of things. But so what we do is we take these people and we say, look, just keep this very quiet and don't go running around saying, hey, I'm plant-based or I'm vegan and I'm better than you, blah, 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 or stop eating meat. How are you killing those animals? Like, well, dude, 10 minutes ago, you were having a hamburger. You just switched. All right. So have some compassion for other people. Keep it quiet. If you're going to go out and eat at a restaurant, nibble some food beforehand and go there and see what they got. Don't make a big deal out of it. Because if you feel uncomfortable, you're going to make everybody else feel uncomfortable. Just like, oh no, I'm on a special lifestyle right now. I can't do that. No, come on, have a beer, get some steak. It's like, thank you, but no, thank you. Appreciate you. I really appreciate you the offer, but I'm just going to have a big salad. Can you throw some avocado on that for me? You got that? Or some artichoke hearts? Great. Just squeeze some lemon on it and put some salt and pepper and I'm good. Right. Or squeeze some lime. You can get away from dairy dressings and stuff like that. The other thing is to set your family down, set down your kids and set down your husband or set down your wife and say, hey, look, I'm really concerned about my life. Like Billy, my buddy just died, or, my aunt just died of this, or my mom's got that, or I'm just like not feeling good. And doctors tell me everything's okay, but I know I'm not feeling good and something's going to go wrong here. I'm going to start putting myself first. Now, if the woman, let's say, and it could be reverse roles, it just depends, but let's say the woman's responsible for cooking and the guy wants to change his health. I would have a sit down with her and say, hey, look, I'm so committed to this and I'm not going to ask you to do, your life's going to get easier because I'm going to start taking care of my own food. Okay. Don't put that shit onto her and make her start doing it unless she's 100% committed to do it. And even better, maybe she'd want to join you if you approach her properly. Right. But even if she doesn't, it's okay. because you have to lead by example. I did this myself. I came back and I was like coming from the institute and all that. I mean, 40 hours
I
of
can imagine.
lectures. My wife was like, dude, stop, you're crazy. And then 7 months later, the juicer went on by itself and she was making the juice because I set the example. I dropped 38 pounds in 60 days. My health was coming back. I felt amazing. My skin issue. I said, hey, that skin issue on my shoulder, how bad is it? Because we got to go see your dad's doctor buddy down there, that plastic surgeon, get those shots again. She's like, it's gone. And I'm like, what? Gosh. I'll never forget. I sprinted down the hallway and I went to the mirror and I was like, with my mirror thing in the bathroom, like, oh my God, it's gone. I'm like, yes, that was one more thing that would have taken a whole half a day out of our trip to go to the hospital in Lima to go visit this guy just to get a shot, because we could have got it for free because her dad ran this big clinic. Right. But I didn't have to go do that crap, and I could go to the freaking beach and have a good time. And I hate needles.
That's awesome. Well, one thing you said that I really want to emphasize is the whole thing about being compassionate towards other people, because myself, I was 64 when I went plant-based, and, it's like, so interesting, because at the age of 60, I started I did my first marathon, came in last. I hold that distinction, but I did it. I crossed the finish line. And since that time, I've been a real avid runner, and I'm not a fast runner by any stretch, but every year I do something to kind of celebrate. And I would have to say for 64, it was going plant-based, and I didn't even intend it that way. It was really about inflammation. I wanted to get rid of inflammation. One thing led to another. And it's so interesting about the veils being lifted. It's like, little by little, I see different benefits to being plant-based. I used to have bumps on the back of my arm. And I remember one day I'm at the gym and scratching my arm, and it's like, the bumps are gone. And then I noticed that I was in the dentist chair and I had this terrible headache, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it was like, I used to get these every day, and I haven't had one for a year. And it's like, this is incredible. So those are things that we notice, but the being compassionate towards others, I think that oftentimes we can get hold of an idea, and especially people like you and people like me who are real energetic and real enthusiastic and real passionate. It's like, everybody has to get this. It's like, no. Live the example and people will get it. And especially, some people, they don't have the availability of the resources like we do. There's food deserts, and in certain areas of cities, it's easier to get a 6-pack of beer and a pack of cigarettes than a head of lettuce, And so,
can I address that really quick?
Yeah, please do.
Because eating lower on the food chain will heal you, and it's easier. So if you don't have access to a lot of food, what you can do is you can have food shipped to you nowadays, especially seeds. Okay.
Okay.
And the easiest thing to start sprouting, because I could literally, like, I've been on a mission for 2 years. I'm staying in a house right now with a woman who's got breast cancer, mom's got dementia, and boyfriend's got Crohn's. So major healing. For 2 years, I've been going from house to house, detoxing the home, detoxing the fridge, detoxing their body, detoxing the mind, detoxing their relationships, cleaning everything up, and letting these people, giving them the space so that they can heal, right? And so it's eating lower on the food chain. So you can just have seeds shipped to your house. You can put them in storage containers. You can grow live foods on your countertop in glass jars, like lentils. Red, green, and French lentils are a wonderful food. They're mung beans. You can grow those. Fenugreek, which is a Greek hay, it creates this mucilaginous gel that'll heal your gut. It's great for breast milk production, brain health, all these cool stuff. All of those things will sprout in 2.5 days. Literally, they're ready to start throwing on your salads in 2.5 days. Right?
That's incredible.
Then you can take it that's no dirt, by the way. In 2.5 days, they're ready. You want to go to the next level, you can start doing radish sprouts and broccoli sprouts and red clover sprouts and alfalfa sprouts, seeds. Get a gallon glass jar, 3/4 of a cup of seed, soak it, and then you rinse it and drain it really well, and then rinse it and drain it really well every day for about 8 days. And then about on day 5 or 6, you have to dump them out and kind of float all the seeds into a big thing and get all the dead seeds off. Otherwise they'll mold, and then put it back in and rinse it off, and keep it really dry, because it needs the oxygen or the carbon dioxide. And then you'll have this big, huge bounty, and you could throw it in the refrigerator in these little things that have covers and stuff on them. They have little aerators in them. And then they'll keep for up to 2 weeks, but just eat them. And then you just throw another 3/4, rinse the thing out with soap and water, 3/4 of seeds, soak it, and get another batch going. And
Can people go to your website and find out that kind of information?
We don't have all the new. We had all the sprouting stuff on the old site, but when it came over, it all got lost. So we have to rebuild all that.
Okay.
But we do teach that in our private group coaching.
Okay. So when's the book coming out? I want to know that.
Well, the first, well, we've done a bunch of manuals.
Okay.
The next book is going to be our recipe book.
Okay, excellent.
We don't
And when is that due to come out?
I don't have a date, but I should set a date. So
okay,
how about,
let's set a date.
So how about we'll do, let's see, it was July. How about August or October 1st?
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that because I'm going to have you back on the show on October 1st, and we're going to really promote the hell out of your book. And excuse me, the heck out of your book. I want to respect our audience, but but this is Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Tim James, who is with Chemical Free, and he is the health hero, and he loves it when you poop. And actually, he shows you how to poop properly, and he also soaks his nuts because his nuts need to sprout properly. So I love that. I love that. It's like
it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. So again, tell people how they can find you. What is your web address? And in your closing thoughts, what would you leave people with? Actually, before we finish, I want to find out how healthy is it to raise kids on a plant-based diet and sprouting and doing all the low on the food chain kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's really important. Let me give you a couple of first-person examples. Okay. The first example is Doctors Brian and Anna Maria Clement, who have been the directors of the Hippocrates Health Institute for 40 years. They've raised 4 children that have not had one stitch of meat. Now, I'm not saying that for those of you that are still eating meat, I'm not putting it down. All I'm telling you is that I know these people well. I've hosted they come to Portland. I host their events every year. We have 300 people in the audience, 100 people, whatever. 4 children and now grandchildren. They've never had any meat, any dairy, any of that stuff, and they've never been sick one day.
Wow.
Not one day they've been sick. And if they do get sick, it's just like they still can go to school. And then he's got great stories and stuff. Now, I have another gal that was a sous chef at the Hippocrates Health Institute. She moved up here to Oregon because her brother was up here or something. And she had a little baby. His name was Charles. Same as I have my Charles, right, that got me there, my buddy. And she called him the raw baby. He had actually never had any cooked food, not let alone plant-based. So the Clements were like that too. They're mostly raw living foods, right? So this is another example. And she said that, she took him to the pediatrician, and he's got hundreds of kids as patients. He's like, this is by far in my 20 years of practice, the healthiest child that I've ever seen in my life. Not even close. And he never had cooked food. That's had cooked food. So if you think about it, we are the only species on this planet that cooks our food, right? And yet we have all these health issues, and it goes back to that digestive leukocytosis. So if we can get over the 51% mark of our food to be raw, cooked, uncooked, unprocessed, then that digestive leukocytosis stops. And even better, the more plant-based matter that you eat, and you have to chew it really well. So I have to say something. So if somebody's like, I'm excited, I'm going to go plant-based, you need to be careful because your digestive tract is probably atrophied. Because cooked food is like doing bench press with a broomstick. There's no resistance there. So there's no muscle built up in that digestive tract. So if you go all raw and you don't chew your food really well and you're not taking digestive enzymes for that prerequisite 2 to 3 years to rehabilitate that gut, you can cause major pain and gas and bloating because you're like throwing 300 pounds on the bench press and you've been lifting with a broomstick. So raw foods, uncooked, unprocessed foods are the weights or the resistance. So we teach our clients to just add 10% more raw to your food by weight, and then do that for a while, and then add 10%. Keep adding 10% until you get up to somewhere between the 50 and 80% mark, and just find your happy place, and you'll see your health, your skin. Look at my skin. I mean, I'm almost 50. It's ridiculous. So I have manifested what I saw at the Institute. These people look 10, 15 years younger than their age. I'm doing it. Like I'm doing what they're doing. I did it. I got the results. It's been 10 years, and I can actually say that now, and proof's in the pudding. Yeah, so that's a really important point.
So they go to chemicalfree.com. That's
chemicalfreebody.com.
Chemicalfreebody.com. And the final question I have is the whole issue with what's going on with COVID and, the underlying causes, because whenever they show what's going on, you see these people that are morbidly obese. You see people that obviously are not taking care of themselves. And, I know COVID is a real thing. I wear a mask out. I do the social, I have a lot of respect for mostly the people who are at high risk in my life, and my mother-in-law, for one, want to make sure that I do all I can to keep her safe. But when when they give us these numbers, but you know that there's underlying causes, what can people do to really minimize their risk of complication? Because they could contract the virus, but the complications is that's where we're on a real fine line, and you cross that invisible line. What can people do?
Well, being on the front lines of this stuff, everybody, my followers are looking to me for answers, right? Because a lot of them are working. Hopefully, they are working. They're busy with kids and doing all this stuff. So they're coming into like our podcast. They're trying to get information. So I've been researching this stuff pretty heavily since the beginning of this outbreak, and it's crazy what's really going on. So yes, the virus is real. It does exist. What I found out, though, it was man manipulated. I don't know if it was man manipulated here in the United States and then sent to China, or if it was sent to China from the United States, which I do know that, and then it was manipulated there. Bottom line is that sucker's out there. It spreads very quickly, but the death rate is very low. I know Fauci came out and said that it was 2.2 million people were going to die of it. And right now, as of yesterday, we had like 138,000 on the death count. But these death counts, Kathleen, are skewed big time. They're skewed big time. So you have to look at all the different levels of this stuff. Why is it that it's just crazy. Why are the hospitals getting paid $13,000 to identify a COVID death? Why are they? Why?
You're talking to me now.
And pneumonia cases are going down. Flu cases are going down. But see, everything they actually have two different codes, and this comes from the World Health Organization. They had bona fide. Yes, somebody was tested positive for COVID. That death gets marked down as a COVID death. But then there was like this one down here that, well, maybe they can, or it looks like it. You suspect, then mark it as COVID.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So
sad.
They're incentivized to do that, and they also get $39,000 or $35,000. I can't remember. It's a large amount of money to put somebody and intubate them and put them on a ventilator. Okay. Now, if you have COVID, this is a respiratory inflammatory disease. Your alveoli get filled up with fluid, and if you put somebody on a respirator, the statistics are 88% chance you're going to kill them, because you're going to basically explode their lungs, because it's just basic science at that point. It's like hydraulics, so the space volume and the fluid, and you kill people. So these hospitals have been turned into like murdering wards. So I have a guest coming on. I'm not going to mention her right now, but she's a nurse, and she was on the front lines in New York at the epicenter at Elmhurst Hospital. And she said that it was bad because they had whole floors that were for COVID patients. And then they had a 45-minute test where they could test you, and 45 minutes later find out if you had COVID or not, or they had 5 or 7 day tests. They're doing everybody on the 5 to 7 day test because they said they didn't have enough money to do the 45-minute test. So what did they do? She said they'd take those people that would come in with maybe the flu or maybe a cold, or because they're freaked out because the media is like fear. And they like, normally these people would just stay home and heal, but they're like, shit, maybe I've got COVID. Let's go in. So they go in, maybe anxiety just from freaking out. And they do the test, and then the hospital was putting those patients on the same floor as the COVID patients that were already infected. And she said she was a military nurse. She got wounded in battle. She was a sergeant, and she was at third world countries, and she'd been in outbreaks before, and she knew the proper protocols. And she said those protocols weren't working. She's like, we were transmitting the disease back and forth from patient to patient, and they were absolutely putting people on the same floor. And then when she started speaking out was when a 37-year-old man came in with some like chest pain or anxiety, and she said she came back in, and he said didn't have COVID. He was healthy. The next day, they put him on like muscle relaxer, and then like 7 or 8 like drugs like fentanyl and a bunch of other stuff. He had 7 or 9 drips going. He's completely out of his mind. They intubated him, put him on it, and then he killed him. She's like, he did not die of COVID, but he got marked down as a COVID death.
Oh my God.
And she's they're turning him into killing machines. And when you drop your spouse or your loved one off, you can't even go inside the hospital anymore.
Well, that rips me apart, because I was there when my dad passed, and I was there when my mom passed. And my mom had a 2-year process after my dad died of being in the hospital a lot. Very, very sickly woman.
Yes.
But when I see that to me is inhumane treatment. It's like, how can you keep a loved one from not being with the person? They've been married 60, 70 years and you're separate. No, that's not okay. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Pam Popper, but she's plant-based, and she does a lot in that.
Yeah, I've met her a couple times at Veg
phenomenal woman. And she has really been speaking out about, the skewed numbers and all that. And what's interesting is the death rate of people who have heart conditions is 675,000 deaths in the United States per year, and it's going up. And yet we don't look at, what's the cause of that? How can we minimize that?
Animal fat.
It absolutely. And so,
Protein.
we could go on. I think we should do a whole nother episode just on COVID.
Well, let me finish up on this because I don't want people to think I'm like completely anti-medicine, because the Western medicine was developed in wartime. So it's really good for crisis modes, emergencies, and that kind of stuff. For palliative care, it's to help somebody heal long-term. It's not set up for that. They just give you a pill. They don't know what they're doing. Doctors don't study nutrition. They have higher suicide rates than the rest of the population. They're not healthy for the most part. But there are good doctors out there doing things.
Absolutely.
And I've got right here, just so you know, like, I am so pro-nature, it's ridiculous. I am completely against synthetic drugs because they're acid-based. However, I will tell people about things that work. So right now, I know of 2 doctors, Dr. Joseph Verone, who's the chief of medicine at United Memorial Center in Houston, Texas. He's treated 40 patients successfully with perfect recovery rates using hydroxychloroquine and zinc. They have to be used together. Chief of medicine, this other guy, Dr. Anthony Cardillo, ER specialist, CEO of Mend Urgent Care. He was on ABC News. Every single patient's symptom-free in 8 to 12 hours. Again, hydroxychloroquine and zinc. Wow. But what they're doing is they're saying hydroxychloroquine doesn't work because they're not doing it with zinc. It has to be with those two, okay? So that's one example where we have an old drug where the patents wore out. It's super cheap, but nobody's talking about. I mean, Trump came out in the beginning. Actually, I saw the news like, "What about hydroxychloroquine?" And then Trump said, "Hey, hydroxychloroquine." Now they're like, "It's bad because Trump's using it." Well, no, here it is. Okay, now I've got another doctor, Dr. Richard Bartlett. He's also down in Texas. He's using an inhaled steroid called budesonide. This is a common drug to treat asthma. It reduces respiratory inflammation. Again, what's COVID? Respiratory inflammation. It's generic. You can pay for this. The whole treatment's $200 cash out of your pocket, and most insurance covers it. There's no money in this drug. Okay, this is going to blow your mind, Kathleen. So he basically puts these people on this drug with a nebulizer, and he has them get on zinc as well, which is an antiviral. And it's been used for babies in preemies and elderly in nursing homes for years, so it's really safe for a pharmaceutical type drug. He's got 100% cure rate when caught early with COVID. Now, he's getting hammered on with the media. They're hammering him. Where's your double-blind studies? And you don't have your clinical trials. Well, all that shit takes years and billions of dollars.
Right.
So he's like, well, what about this? How about Japan? They have 121 million people. Taiwan's got 24 million, and Singapore has 5.6. And these people are stacked upon each other like cordwood in these little islands. They're packed. There's no social distancing. If they were doing 6 feet apart, they'd all be floating out in the ocean on little floaty devices. He said, and I got the statistics here. I updated them yesterday. What is Singapore, Japan, and Taiwan doing? They are also using an inhaled steroid, just like budesonide. It's a little bit different, but guess what? They have 1,015 deaths in 150 million people. How come that's not being broadcast on the mainstream media?
Well, you can't foster fear with that kind of information. I mean, it's like keep people in a place of fear and, divide and conquer. I mean, there's a lot that could go into that discussion because it just frustrates the heck out of me, when I see the lack of information.
Now, here's the last of it, is that there are natural sources. So if you want to boost your immune system so that you don't get sick or that you can handle COVID naturally, is you need to have a lot of vitamin A in your body. Where do you get that? Leafy green vegetables. You need vitamin D in your body, which 70% of Americans aren't getting. How do you get that? Sunshine. What are they telling you to do? Stay home, hide out, get out of the sun. Don't closing the parks here in Oregon. You can't even go out for walks. It's crazy. So the things that can help you, and you mentioned something earlier about depression. I had this article up. I can't find it, but it was the University of Michigan. They did an article on depression and being isolated and stay at home. It reduces your immune system big time and makes you really depressed, okay? And I have clients that have been off depression medication for 20 years that are back on it now because of this, or client of a client. They're not on our products, otherwise they probably wouldn't be on it anyway. But like this guy told me, his wife, she's been fine for years, but now she's back on her antidepressant. So, and vitamin C is antiviral, and zinc, and iodine and iodide. These are really important for your thyroid. So iodine and iodide, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin D3, and vitamin C, but they have to be naturally occurring sources. And then if somebody's in a critical condition, they can do high dose, like 400 international units of vitamin A, like 50,000 international units of vitamin D3, and then they can do 100 grams of vitamin C IV until they're well. And I have
So
proof.
Is that stuff in your product? Do you have that in your product?
Oh, our product's chock full of vitamin A. There's zinc in there, iodide, because we put Dulse flakes. So here's the mainstream media. The Los Angeles Times leaked this on accident, May 3rd of 2020. Dr. Ryan Pageant, who is a medical doctor up in Seattle, was treating elderly COVID patients right in the beginning, right? And he probably got tired. Who knows? He's just working his butt off. His immune system dropped because he wasn't getting good sleep. He gets COVID. Soon after that, he was admitted to his own hospital with a fever and cough and difficulty breathing. He was then placed on a ventilator. 5 days later, his lungs and kidneys were failing because ventilators kill people in that situation. His heart was in trouble, and doctors figured he had a day or so to live. Now, what did they do? They put him on an immunosuppressant drug and high-dose vitamin C IV, and they were able to take him off the life support.
Wow.
So there it is. Los Angeles Times, mainstream media, May 3rd. I've got the article right here. We have a medical doctor exposed to it, and high-dose vitamin C IV worked. And if you look at Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, who is one of the top biological engineers in the world out of MIT, he's a Fulbright scholar. He's actually got 4 PhDs from MIT. He's running for senator for Massachusetts to bring truth, freedom, and health to this whole thing. He actually wrote a letter to President Trump outlining the 4 different levels of people, whether you have COVID and you're immunocompromised or not, and all this other stuff, or if you don't have it, and then the solutions for each one. It's on the letter he wrote, and high dose vitamin C was also in this guy's letter.
Good to know. Good to know. And yeah, there's so much misinformation out there. So Tim, this has been delightful. I'm definitely going to have you back. I've been speaking with Tim James of Chemical Free Body, and just go to chemicalfreebody.com. You can get his products there. And I know that you were going to give a nice coupon code for people that are listening and watching to get some kind of a discount. Tell me about that.
Yes. Yeah, we created a 5% discount code off for their first purchase, and the code is Power Up. So when you just go to checkout, put Power Up, and you'll get 5% off your first order.
All right. Well, Tim, this has been delightful. I just so appreciate your transparency, your wisdom, and the fact that you have gone from being a super redneck hunter to being this just amazing guy that's out there changing the world with all your great information. And I'm here to support you. Anything I can do to help, I will do it. This is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health, and we wish you a life filled with health, vitality, and vibrancy. Have a great day.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.